The Philippines is a third world tiger, poorly fed, poorly protected, under a leash of a corrupt dynasty who wants power, wealth, and control. The dynasty of hunger for power and control is further driven and bred throughout the 20th century through their cronyism and nepotism. This theme of corruption recurs almost every year, putting the Philippines as the top 9 most corrupt country in the world and 4th in the Asia Pacific in the 1990s. Because of the dynasty's lack of care for the tiger, the third world tiger becomes sick and develops certain problems: poverty and inequality, economic loss and underdeveloped societies, under-resourced schools, failed infrastructure, and injustice. All of which limits the opportunities of the Filipinos to thrive and become successful in the modern world. The third world tiger is dying. Filipinos are poor. Dreams for a brighter Philippines becomes dim.
The birth of Philippine kleptocracy. In the 20 years of Marcos' presidency, he had achieved a lot under the kleptocratic criteria. Established a 14-year martial law, stole $10 billion from different government projects, and laundered it to banks in Liechtenstein and Switzerland. Let the whole family live lavishly, and won the title Guinness Book of World Record Greatest Robbery of a Government in 1986, having stolen $860.8 million. He may have been the greatest kleptocrat that has ever existed relative to the amount of resources that his location has. In addition to the kleptocracy, he was ruthless as well. He established a dynasty by putting his family members in position of power. He is said to have tortured around 35,000 people, imprisoned 70,000, and killed 3,257 Filipinos. People were tortured and killed during his time, and the rotten bodies were then left out on the roadside for public display. Fortunately, the mania ended in 1981 and he was exiled from the Philippines in 1986 after the People Power Revolution.
The third world tiger.
Fast forward to 2021, we see a figure of a third world tiger for what it really is.
A condition of the Philippines brought about by a history of violence, corruption, and poverty. The tiger will prance again after it becomes free from the chains of corruption. However, we see symptoms of our society not learning from the past, and corruption keeps springing up in our modern times on multiple occasions. From pork barrel scandal from 2001 to 2013, to the lost 15 billion pesos by the PhilHealth in 2021.
Attitude towards corruption whilst in power still remains, and it's up to us to prevent history from recurring.
We must pay back the debts that we have and prevent ill-valued people from rising into power and becoming corrupt, in order to keep the tiger alive.
We got history, got me feeling the nostalgia when you look at me.
The solution to this problem is very simple. 1. We create a system that exterminates opportunities for people to be corrupt whilst being in power. 2. We prioritize paying back our debts in order for our country to not pay additional money on interest. 3. We create a meritocratic system which rewards hardworking people in multiple industries to boost our economy, just like what they did in Japan. 4. We play fair and trust each other that a brighter Philippines will be a fruit brought about by our youth. These recommendations are rather general, but the principle is flexible enough to be applied in multiple areas of Filipino life, whether in the social or the financial aspect, whether in the leadership or followership. And if that doesn't work, we must innovate with the times in order to adapt in solving old problems that mutate with culture. We must pay it back to keep the tiger alive. Now, there are no tigers in the Philippines, but the kleptocratic dynasty exists and the chains of poverty remain in controversial and convoluted stories that Filipinos might not understand. In the lack of understanding of how things were back in the 1970s and 80s,
We all become the metaphorical third world tiger, chained into submitting to corrupt officials and murderous masters. And it is for us all to set the third world tiger free.